You are in the Temple of the Rants, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Jimmy Joe Joe Jr., who says, rant about anime tropes that can often apply to other mediums. For example, Wheel of Time, a fantasy series from the 90s, is filled with bad tsunderes. Your video on it, which is what convinced me to drop this series after book 5 of 14, really get into the bones of it. I mean, is there an anime trope that doesn't exist in other mediums might be a better question. Like, it's just it's just another storytelling medium. It's just like any other. I mean, we tend to have like specific labels that are given to things as they occur in anime just because of the culture or the trends. Like the tsundere is an archetype that must have existed for all of time. Like the idea of a character who starts off being, aggressive towards you and eventually comes to like you. I'm sure you could fucking find pieces of classical literature which contain very clear examples of tsundere. The only reason that we have a word for it is that, otaku culture, being as it is, very insular and very like self-referential and very cliquish, wants to come up with as many terms as possible, not so much as a gatekeeping, but more as like signaling to one another, like, hey man, I get it too. I'm also, on 2 channel and stuff like that. And it's really funny because like the popularization of the term tsundere, I think, in the West has a lot to do with just the burgeoning popularity of anime. That like it's not that the archetype even necessarily became so dramatically common as that people referencing the archetype became dramatically common. It was, just one of a great deal of things that comes out of 2 channel and their slang and like the way that they talk about things. It's just an observation someone makes about a handful of characters and gives it a name, and then because of the fact that someone's given it a name, and now people are going out of their way to create characters that would fit that description, and people are going out of their way to seek characters who fit that description, and more people are referencing it as a way of, calling out to their fellow otaku, and then you end up with Lucky Star and Minoru Shiraishi literally giving a 3-minute rant about the de-evolution of tsundere in media. And this is clearly just based on probably something that had been said many times on the internet. Like, there's a lot of this in anime that goes under the radar. There's a lot more of these types of terms, this type of, referencing to the internet that just the average Western fan is never going to get because we're not on 2 channel. And, like, not all of these get so thoroughly explained either in a show or by ambassadors to that culture that we would catch on to it. So when, say, in Steins Gate, the characters are constantly spouting memes and talking points from message boards and like literally rehashing arguments that would have existed online, a little bit of that gets lost in translation. A little bit of like the fact that they're not just it's not just cheeky dialogue. It's referential dialogue to the way that these nerds actually talk as a way of letting you know, hey, these characters are supposed to be, internet nerds. They're supposed to be 2 channelers. And, so I think that pretty much any terminology that we come up with to describe something in anime is never going to be unique to anime unless it's literally an animation term, unless it's something that could only exist in the medium of animation. But even then, why would it be limited to Japanese animation? I don't know, So, like, for instance, the Tsukomi and the bokeh, this idea of, like, the straight man, funny man, like, we even have a word for it. Like, it's funny that people will talk about, like, those 2 terms and like the idea of the manzai comedy duo, because while it is more specific, and that's why it's worth using those terms, because obviously if a Japanese creator creates characters on those archetypes, they're doing it to have that specific angle. The fact that it can so accurately translate to straight man, funny man just goes to show that it goes way beyond the anime. So yeah, like I think that, or the concept of moe, for instance, like, I think moe is just a feeling that could be felt towards any sort of character in any sort of medium, if they were going at it with the intention of generating that feeling, or even without the intention. If you feel that feeling towards a character, it exists in that medium. So yeah, I would say there's no such thing a as a trope that could only apply to anime.